Hello everybody, we're all set with our data and data model, so let's build our first few visuals. We're going to start off with the simplest of them all. We're going to build those headline numbers with some cards. We're going to go on and build a simple table, country league table, but we'll write our first interesting calculation, DAX calculation, that's the attack rate, and finally we'll build a stack bar chart showing the cases over time by continent. So let's get started. We're back in the dashboard, and what we want to do is to recreate first of all these headline numbers, cases and Fs. On the left hand side these two values are not affected by the filter. On the right hand side these values in green are affected by the filter. So example, I can come along to my continent and choose Africa, and you'll see the ones in green, the right hand side, they change, and the ones in the left, they don't. In Power BI, I've created a new page. I've called it Headline Numbers, and I'm going to put a couple of cards on the page. There we go. We'll put them side by side. I'm going to drag the number of cases onto one card, and I'm going to drag the number of deaths onto another card. Now, we'd actually like the actual number, not some approximation to the nearest million. So I'm going to come, having selected both of those, into Data Label, and for the display unit I'm going to say none. In this week's session what we're going to do is actually just look at those two headline numbers on the right hand side that were affected by the filters, and both of those were in some sort of green, so what we'll do is we'll give them a green color. Okay, the final thing, they're quite hard to read because we want to put the thousand separator in. Let's do that. I'm going to come along to the model view, because with the model view what I can do is I can operate on several columns at once. I've selected both my cases and deaths columns, and I'm just going to come over here and stick the thousand separator on, and if we go back and have a look, the numbers are easier to read. Now let's add some filters. The filters that we want are going to apply to all the pages in the report. So what I'm going to do is go to my filter pane and put them on filters on all pages. So we had a filter there that was on the continent. I'll just drag that in there, and then if I choose a particular continent we can see that those numbers change. I'm going to bring in continent, but I'm also going to bring in the in EU block. I'm going to bring in the EU region, and finally I'm going to bring in the country. There we go. So I can select on any of these. For example, if I wanted to have a look at the United Kingdom, I'm going to come over here, click on United Kingdom, and there we see the latest numbers for the United Kingdom. In this early part of developing our dashboard, we're just going to make the basic visual, and we're going to put them separately on different pages. Later on we'll use a formatting page to make our visuals a lot more nice, and we will use some navigation to tie them all together. But just for now it's the basic visual. Our next visual is going to be the table, so let's create a new page for that. So we're back at the dashboard, and this is the table that we're going to recreate. It's a table with a country on each different row. It's got the number of cases, the number of deaths, and also a column called the attack rate. The attack rate is a calculation based on the population. It's a number of cases for every 100,000 of the population. So we'll write a simple calculation to do that first of all, then we'll recreate this table. We're back in Power BI, and we're going to create that attack rate calculation. Again, I'm going to click on New Measure, and that will bring up the formula bar. I'll make it a bit bigger so we can all see it, and I'm going to say attack rate. That's the name of my calculation, and what it is equal to is the number of cases divided by the population. And again, this is why I created those explicit measures, because now this calculation is a lot simpler. Rather than sum of cases divided by sum of population, I can write something simpler. There's a couple of things I've got to do as well. First of all, it's 100 cases per 100,000. So I've got to multiply that by 100,000. And rather than using this divide operator, what I can do is use a function in DAX, the calculation language, called divide. That's a safe divide, and just in case this population number happens to be 0, it will give an alternative result, but by default that alternative result is blank, so we're quite happy to leave it like that. So that's created our attack rate measure, and there it is on the fact table. Now let's create that table in Power BI. I'm going to click on the table visual and make it bigger, and then choose the columns that I need. So country, cases, def, attack rate. What I'll also do is change the style to minimal, and I'll order the cases descending. So we have the United States at the top. What we can do as well is we can use conditional formatting on any of these columns. So while the table is selected, what I can do is I can go into conditional formatting, and then for each of the numerical columns, let's just choose attack rate for example, there's various ways of formatting. I'll use data bars, and what I'm going to do is click on the advanced control of these data bars, and I think will come up. I want quite a light number so I can see the light shade, so I can see the number behind it. I'm just going to click on OK for that. And if I have a look at my attack rate, again what I'm going to do is I'm going to order by attack rate. We can see that there is this one thing. This is the cruise liner outside Japan that has a massively high attack rate. It's a bit of an anomaly, so I'm actually going to exclude it from this. I can come here and just come along and say exclude. And then we can have a look at our rates. We might say that actually we don't want to look at small countries here, maybe less than 100,000, simply because a few people either way might mean that the attack rate varies quite a lot. So what I'm going to come along is I'm going to come along to the population for this visual. I'm going to drag it onto the data fields, and I'm going to say that I want the population of this table to be greater than, say, that's 100,000, and I'll apply that filter. So that gets rid of the tiny countries. So we can see Luxembourg, Iceland and Spain are the top of this rather unfortunate league table. Let's create that bar chart in Power BI. Clicking on the bar chart visual to put it on the canvas, and I'm going to configure it with the date and the cases, and that gives me the initial bar chart. What I might want to do as well is put, for example, continent on my legend, and I can check that my filters are working. If I come down to filters on page, if I choose a particular continent, say America, I can see that's working. Let me uncheck that. I can also go to my date, and maybe I just don't want to look at all dates. Maybe the last 2 months is what's interesting to me, so I'll go to my relative date and I'll say in the last 2 months, and I'll click that. There we go.